Like I said, it is connected. It always was.
Are we live?
We're live. Here we are.
We're back.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Get the Mic. I'm your host on the left, Owl.
And I'm your host on the right, Brok.
And it is good to be back live streaming.
Yes, it's been a little while.
Planning videos, there's some merit to that, but more or less, Get the Mic was inspired and was always supposed to be live discussions of Brok's ideas and my ideas clashing, or not really clashing, but
Just organically coming up. Hence the name.
I want a door as the H
We could probably do that.
because the door.
Oh, the fabled door episode. We have to keep teasing it.
We will always. So we're glad to be back. Chat is open, and today we're going to be talking about episode 14 of Dragon Ball, Goku's Rival.
Goku's rival. Starting off immediately on sort of a new arc.
But before we get into that, we want to... we have some housekeeping stuff, I think, to get past. We are releasing videos, at least one shorter, probably 20-25 minute video a week. So keep notice for that. And if you want to, it's usually going to be coming out on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. And then we'll do our streams on Sundays, probably around this time, I would say, Brok.
Yeah, I would say right around 5 o'clock Eastern.
But I'd say go check out those shorter videos, especially if you're just tuning in and you're trying to catch up to what we're talking about. That'll give you a good basis to go over. That is our other show. It's called Myth and Meaning. That's a much shorter program.
Yeah, Myth and Meaning was kind of born out of the fact that these topics are pretty heady and it can take a little while to get through all of them, and we kind of wanted to condense them down and introduce them to people that, I don't know, don't want to devote like 20 hours to a single season.
Or you could devote 20 hours, like some of our listeners.
It's true.
What's happening? So let's go ahead and get started here. We're going to be talking about Goku.
Go.
So here he is on the Nimbus. He is back in his homeland.
He is riding the Nimbus home.
Right. Changes out of the clothes that Oolong gave him and is heading to Master Roshi's. Now, I think it's significant that he needs to return home before he can do anything else after his adventure. He doesn't have the Dragon Ball anymore.
Right.
I mean, he still has his power pole, right? And he needs some stuff, but there is also a symbology behind going home, that the heroes return at the end of the journey, let's say, which is kind of how we begin this arc.
Right. It also frames this very similarly to the beginning of the last season, right, where it starts off in Goku's at home, and it's about sort of that hero's journey that they need to start at home so that they can contextualize the journey by leaving home. Mm-hmm. So the return to home is almost like a reframe.
Well, it's also symbolic because he's moving homes. He's actually switching the home of the entire series for basically the rest of the series.
This is true.
Home base is and will be from now on Kame House.
Right. Pretty much for everybody. It just seems to be, I mean, not technically, but...
Well, it's the house of the father.
It is home as such, in a way.
Yeah, exactly. And so, it's significant, too, to say that Goku is now above all of the trifles that were in his homeland to begin with. All of the natural, let's say, obstacles and he can now breeze through even more than before. This is even more of a mastery of his domain.
Right. This is how you see your home when viewed from the Nimbus, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can see he's got this bird's eye view here in this frame that he can. Not only is he a master of this place, but he has the context of it. He understands it.
And particularly too, as he's riding the Nimbus through, he like takes shortcuts and things like that, and it's reminiscent of. I can't remember whether it was Dr. Peterson or not talking about how he knew his hometown really well. Yeah, I think it was in Beyond Order. Here's a plug for Dr. Peterson's book, Beyond Order. It's great.
A good book.
But in the book, he talks about how as a kid he knew like every nook and cranny of his neighborhood.
Right.
And as an adult, he barely knows like the streets around him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's kind of like that. And Goku's going back to that area of mastery and just kind of reveling in it one last time.
Yeah, it even goes, to a certain length to show the fact that he knows it so well because he seeks out a specific tunnel to fly the Nimbus in as well. It's like trying to show like he knows this place.
It's a mapping.
Yeah.
His skill at mapping has grown exponentially. And that's exactly the thing he lacked that he needed to get from Bulma in the last arc.
Right. He comes back without the Dragon Ball, but he comes back with the Nimbus.
Right, the means.
Exactly.
Instead of the ends. I think that's a good time. So now we get to our title screen here, Goku's rival. I just wanted to grab it.
It's not any different in the Japanese on this one. I think it's Goku's rival appears.
Oh, whoa. That's way different.
But it's just Goku's rival in English.
No, it's pretty much the same. I don't think there's too much significance other than Goku's rival, as we all know, is not going to be. He's not going to be that for very long. We'll see how it plays out. There's a spirit of Goku's rival that is embodied by several characters going forward, as many of you probably know. But to explain that spirit, Krillin is the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have to talk about the Dragon Gang and how they're doing.
Well, they're doing pretty well, as you can see in this image. The flight in what you could almost refer to as Yamcha's logos or Yamcha's Nimbus only got them so far. And as soon as we see them, they are hurtling out of the sky and crash back down into the woods. Why do you think that is?
Oh, that's it's because without the guiding principle that the Nimbus represents, we've talked about, that orientation that allows you to seek out wherever you want to go. Yamcha's still relying on stolen goods, stolen things, and that can only get you so far. It's not going to get you past where we see them end up in a minute, and we'll talk about that.
Right. Another aspect of it that I thought about too is that they don't have Goku with them. Like whenever they made these journeys that we're about to see, previously they did that leaning on Goku for almost everything, right? Literally at times being carried by Goku. And I think that there's a framing here that it's important that they need to be able to make those journeys on their own. And so this
but I
can't let them, they don't get to skip it. They don't get to say like, okay, we had Goku, now we don't have Goku, and he just gave us this.
What I want to talk about when we get to that part. But yeah. I agree with you there. And so the plane that Yamcha's flying explodes. They're all able to escape narrowly. I wanted to put this picture. Oh no, not this one. So here they all are, safe and sound, our dragon crew. Oolong is still wearing the panties.
It's his crown.
It is a crown. It's the fool's crown.
Yeah.
It's true. It's actually hilarious because he gets this crown when Pilaf wanted the crown, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they all escape. Bluma jumps off, and we are keen to the fact that her ankle is still hurt. As interesting of a panel this is, but
It honestly looks like you took the spray filter and MS Paint and you were like,
it looks really bad. Yeah. But just to remind everyone that she was injured escaping from Pilaf's castle, from the castle of the false malevolent ego.
right. There's something about the fact that it's like it immediately wants to remind us of the dynamic between Bulma and Yamcha here, where it's like, and she's fallen down again, and she's fawning over him as he lifts her back up and tends to her ankle again. So we're just kind of setting the stage for what their dynamic is.
Right, and I mean it's also poignant because she is going to be weighing down the rest of them for the journey, right?
What a surprise.
Because of her ill-preparedness, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Just wanted to briefly mention that, and then we have the shadowy figure himself kicking a tree here.
Kuririn.
Here he is, Krillin.
He's just kicking trees to make a lot of noise and freak out the dragon crew right now because we don't see him do anything with the trees. He's just kicking them over because
he's kicking them over so he can make some light so you can see it's clearing.
So we can see more clearly.
Yeah. I do think it's important to note that he is, and we're going to talk about his character as we get further on. But as of right now, he is still a shadowy figure. And that's kind of the spirit that he's going to start off embodying. It's funny, though, because as we get through some of these more of these shots, we're going to see the design of Krillin change.
It's pretty dynamic.
Yeah.
Even just through the first episode that he appears, his design seems to kind of go all over the place.
But here, it gives us a mysterious, right, out of that chaotic realm is where Krillin is coming from.
Right. He is sort of coming into light from the unknown.
That's exactly what he does with the trees.
Yeah. Which is what, the dark forest represents, right?
This is basically his genesis. He's being born.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I want to touch on the status of the world at this point because you have the Blind King who still refused to partake in any of the issues of the world at large, right? The world was saved by the Dragon Crew. And now you have an absence of that chaos and that malevolence in the world. And so after Goku's got this mapping skill, his next challenge is going to be not quite malevolence, but it's going to be a challenge that rises to meet him. And I think it's part of a bigger meta story about Goku and how he is in relation to the way that people are supposed to be brought up.
Mm-hmm. There's definitely something. It's like the framing here of Krillin coming out and embodying. Well, this is very similar to where Goku was whenever we first saw him, right? Where he was the master of his domain out there in the wilderness, and this is almost like an earthly representation of Goku coming into view, and we'll see that as we get through this episode with him. Oh, do we have chat?
Yeah, we do have a chat. I was going to look at that real quick. So Yamcha says, we were over on the weight whenever they crash.
Mm.
It's almost like them not being integrated caused them to crash. Just something to think about.
Yeah, you could say that in the same way that you had said Bulma was going to weigh them down, right? It's like the craft that Yamcha stole and was using for that was not rated for
Yeah.
a disparate mode of being or two different people.
Too schismatic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so here we go. Here is our boy Krillin coming into the light.
Not as intimidating once we see him, but he definitely looks smug.
What do you have to say about his design, his minimalist design? Because Toriyama's design is so amazing. It's so minimal, though. He makes these iconic characters with barely any changes to the basic human form.
I'm not sure what I think of Krillin's design yet. I keep kind of playing with the idea in my head of, like, you know, the fact that he's willfully bald, or the fact that he dresses himself up as a monk.
Would you like to talk about his design change?
His design change?
Because later on in Dragon Ball Z, his eyes are much more open.
Oh, yeah.
Right here in his very first inception, his eyes are very narrow. And it's not like a race thing. His eyes...
Oh, no, his eyes are very small throughout a lot of the beginning of Dragon Ball.
But they get bigger throughout, just as the way it's tended to go. His eyes aren't wide open, exactly. Not yet, but that's something that will change about Clearing, as many of you watching know. But I think his design, he does look a little infantile, right?
Right.
But I think that is because this is the inception and the idea of the anti-hero.
The anti-hero.
Yes, so the anti-hero being someone who is pursuing, like Krillin's pursuing this training from Master Roshi for the wrong reasons, right? Someone who's trying to do something that outwardly can be seen as good. And I think Dr. Peterson has a rule about it. Act so you can tell the truth about how you act, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, he doesn't embody the way of Tao in the same way that Goku does, right?
Oh yeah, definitely not. No, he is. He's deceitful. And he's arrogant.
And his reasoning for his betterment is not the same as Goku's, right?
Right, but the betterment itself is still something good.
It's still the hero's path.
It's still the hero's path, and that's why he's the anti-hero, right? That's what I'm saying. And that's the spirit we're going to see duplicated throughout Dragon Ball.
That ties into some bigger thoughts that I have about Krillin that I'm going to hang on to for now, but I think that it'll arise as we talk more about his character moving all the way forward to Z.
Oh yeah, he's a big part of Z. There's a reason why.
Oh yeah.
Oh no. And so then we have Goku arriving on Muten Roshi's island. So we've seen Goku's rival. We've been introduced to him already. Just visual storytelling from Toriyama, by the way. Visual storytelling that's done well. You don't need all this exposition, all this BS. So here, we already know what's going on, but the reason I got this part is because Roshi's on an island. Why is Roshi on an island?
Well, we could talk about water, the symbology of that, and all of that good stuff. But I think ultimately, Roshi is on an island because he is, first of all, as a character, he is an island unto himself. And second of all, the spirit he is located in a place that is difficult to reach, surrounded by the unconscious, so to speak. And it's the mastery of that and the effort that it takes to get to that island is part of the character, I think.
Right. It's also difficult to be tampered with or destroyed. Unlike, let's say, Ox King's kingdom, right? This is the spiritual and principled equivalent of that the spiritual father, right? His locale is reflected by that very thing. The societal father can be destroyed more easily than the spiritual father can be destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a physical manifestation
Yeah,
of that.
and it doesn't happen, right? I mean, there's sometimes we have malice come here, right? But it's never like villains never come and attack it and destroy Kame House, right? It's like they come by, they come by, but there's almost like a reverence for it across all characters, no matter what. As if there's something that we don't know that all of the characters know. That's like, okay, this is we don't target Kame House.
Yeah. None of the villains really do, especially in Dragon Ball.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I just wanted to briefly mention that because it's a good shot of the island. And we can also see that Goku is on his way of Tao and is able to get here much faster than his rival. Good old Master Roshi. Here's what he's up to these days. I think this is another reason why he's on the island is because he, as the spiritual father, he is playing the role of the blind king. His blindness is manifested in this piece of fiction through lechery. And this is exactly what we see him blinded by.
Literally
Blinded by. Instead of contending with what he knows he should be doing.
Well, it's interesting too. I like that he sits around and watches these workout tapes because there's like a pathology to that I think is it's a funny reflection of how he operates as a character, right? So he wants to look at women lecherously, but the way that characters interface with him, at least starting out, is he's a master. He can point you towards betterment. He can train you up. And it's like, okay, I'll watch these women train. I'm watching training videos. That's fine. I'm watching workout videos because I'm the master. But it's a pathologization of his lecherous blindness. I think that's why our original... We're sort of introduced to this dynamic here, starting off in season 2 with the workout videos, because Goku's coming here to work out and become stronger and better himself, and so we see this twisting of that idea, and that's what's blinding him. I mean, it's not literally what's blinding him, but it's interesting that that's where he would be looking.
Right, and it's also one of the reasons why initially he was caused to be awakened whenever he interacted with Bulma on the beach. Again, when Goku and Chi-Chi went to get him for the Bancho fan.
Mm-hmm.
Has to be them to awaken the blind king. He's been awakened, but now he's just like, leave me alone. I want to be blind. Right?
Basically.
And so
willfully.
Yes. And so what can arouse the spirit of the spiritual father? It's the hero.
So this is basically the symbol of what's going on with Roshi and why the shades are representative of his blindness.
Not for kids. I labeled this stream not for kids. Here it is. So yeah, he is willfully blind in this regard, and I think you're onto something too as far as the perversion of the workouts, but particularly why I think Roshi's blindness is tied to women is because of that decision to embody that spiritual father means you have to sacrifice that. It's just something that, as the mode of being he's embodying, he's never going to be able to get.
What do you mean?
I mean, it's the same. It's somewhat of the same idea as like the vows of celibacy in religious orders, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that if you're to embody the spirit and the spirit of virtue and giving up wants, right, to alleviate suffering, right, then this is something that you're never going to be able to partake in. That's basically where Roshi's at. And so, and that's kind of what you see how he acts towards women later in the episode. He actually isn't like he's really lecherous here and all this, but he's like really horrible talking to them. And it's because it's something he's been denied all his life. So that's the blindness that he's reaped. And that's because of the tyranny of the, let's say, the order maybe that he was under whenever he was training, and we'll get to that later on.
Actually, yeah, I hadn't thought of it through the context of that being denied to him, and then it's sort of framing itself in his identity almost, in the way that he views himself is part of that, right? He doesn't view himself as, let's say, the wise old man, right? He's more focused outwardly towards, well, being placated, being entertained, like,
exactly.
Doesn't have a good outlet for his masculine spirit on this island.
No.
So he just points it this way.
Right, and he's, as we said, choosing to avoid the conflicts that are arising in the real world. So the hero wakes him up again.
Literally has to yell into his ear to pry him away from his lecherous fantasies.
And that's what it is too. It's trying to, let's say, pull someone out of their own delusions is not something easily done. So Goku does it here, yells at Master Roshi, and he decides to, because he's hungry, his next step of his journey he's going to need energy for. And so Goku's back in his eating cycle right now. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what Goku eats and why he eats so much in just a second. But here he asks Master Roshi for food. Master Roshi tells him the fridge is open. All this, right? And so then we see Goku here devouring. And there's a particular thing, and I don't know if it's just in, I don't think it's just in Eastern cultures where it's like food humor and things like that. I think that with Super, particularly, it's gone way overboard. But I don't think it's humor for the sake of humor with Goku originally here.
No, I don't think so. I think that it's, I like the idea that it's like, okay, Goku has come all this way, and he's like, there's sustenance at Roshi's place. He'll definitely be able to feed me. And when he gets there, there's a fridge stocked with food, and he eats Roshi out of house and home because Roshi does not want to look away from his vices, right? And so it's like Roshi has all of this nourishment, the nourishment that the hero needs.
Well, he's like feeding on the corpse of the father right now,
Mm-hmm.
right? He's gaining nourishment from Roshi, unwillingly, basically, and it's going to help establish their relationship in just a minute. But I think it's important to point out Goku eats so much because it is representative of that spiritual nourishment that one gets when achieving those goals and those destinations you set for yourself. And it's something reoccurring we'll see with Goku, like Korin Tower, when he gets to the top of Korin Tower, right, and he's starving. He needs that nourishment after those arduous journeys. And it's true. You need to refresh yourself after arduous journeys and not just literally eating. But
well, yeah, and the episode sets up Goku actually doesn't eat when he gets home. He's like, he goes home, he changes, and he says, "I'm hungry," and then he goes, "Oh yeah, there must be food at Master Roshi's place," and so you can kind of frame this as like he still needs to get nourished after the journey that was season 1.
yeah,
and so this is that.
I mean, think about him coming out of season 1, right? He just turned into Uzuru, and he had Oolong's pants on. But we're gonna see too. Some of the places he eats are particularly places of not only physical nourishment and hearth, but spiritual nourishment as well. Like think of King. He does the same thing to King Kai later on. Let's say, and this is just the first example of that. Goku taking the nourishment where he can, and I think that's something that young people might. That's a good message for young people. Is that unwillingly you can siphon off knowledge and enlightenment from your elders and people who are embodying these spirits of positive masculinity and femininity, whether they like it or not. You can,
and whether or not they're virtuous
you can
or
take
blind.
it. You can take it from them, and they can't do anything about it. And that's what it's saying here. That's what Goku is able to do, and that's what young people are able to do. By being around those people, they're able to nourish their spirits.
I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, and you know, Roshi he's not embodying the wise master, but he still has that nourishment that Goku can get anyway, right? And that's a good message, like you're saying, for young people, that you can look at your elders and say, like, well, they're not virtuous, they're not paragons of good, but they're still
or they're not paying attention to me. They don't want to interact with me, so I don't care about them. That is not the mode of being that you should adopt.
You should have reverence for your ancestry.
Right.
And here we are again.
Because otherwise, and so this is kind of what you were talking about that I wanted to get to when we got to the desert. That without Goku, who got them through the desert, they're not going to be able to get through without him. Right? It's like Goku's made these sacrifices. You haven't made the proper sacrifices.
Right, you relied on him and thought that it was inevitably going to get you where you needed to go. But spiritually, that is not what gets you where you need to be.
Well, still, and I think this has to do with the deserts of meaninglessness, or like having to reform your values, right? From season 1, the desires of each of these characters is gone. And this is something Dr. Peterson talks about, after you achieve a goal, you go back into the desert.
Right. You're surf at Starbucks after you get your degree, right?
Right. And so they just got what they wanted, being together with their facsimile masculine and feminine spirits with them, right? They just got what they wanted, so now they're back in the desert, wandering around, figuring out where they're supposed to go next.
Yeah, because it's ultimately about being on the path, and finding the path is difficult.
And being on the path involves those hills, peaks, and valleys. But you're on a general upward trajectory. And so this isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Right. I also want to point out, though, like the desert symbology being sort of it's like the lack of meaning, right? And they run into this in this scene. They don't know which direction they're going. They're all turned around. It's actually pretty great that Yamcha in this scene has Puar turn into a compass so that he can reorient them and see which direction they're headed. And they've gotten themselves completely turned around in the desert. I think that's because of that desert symbology of the sort of meaninglessness, or the lack of a direction, the lack of a concrete purpose to orient yourself towards. And they don't have it now, right? They already got what they wanted.
They had it, but there were no underlying principles to what they wanted.
Right. It wasn't.
And so it's a bigger falling out.
Well, that's the thing. They were focused on the ends, right?
And so there's a bigger falling out than what Goku had. And Goku had a small falling out. He needed some nourishment. Didn't have to be in the desert, though.
No. Because he's already on the path.
Right. But someone's able to get through the desert pretty easily.
It's your boy Krillin.
Bald boy Krillin.
Sprints past them. This is their second encounter with Krillin without knowing who Krillin is. He sprints past them in the desert, and he is focused single-mindedly on where he needs to go.
And that's a powerful force,
Yes.
being single-mindedly focused. Powerful enough to get you through a desert.
Absolutely.
And especially if you know the direction you're traveling, it's all the better. Because then you won't be wandering aimlessly in the desert for years.
Right. With Krillin being focused on a path of self-betterment, it is not the same as what the rest of the Dragon Crew is going through right now. Because they just want to, well, still their goal that they've said is that they want to get to the city. Right.
Yeah, they want to reach a piece of enlightenment that they've already known. They want to get back to, right?
Mm-hmm. Whereas it's a bit more principled what Krillin is focused on.
Yeah, absolutely. But you chose... Okay. Fair enough. And so here is Roshi drinking a beer out of a fluted glass, grabbing it, just...
Full grip on it.
Slamming it down, shamming it down. This is where Roshi makes Goku the offer that he will train him if Goku finds him a gal.
What's a gal?
Exactly. Now, what do you think about that?
I think that it's a reflection of an idea that we've seen already with Goku being a mirror for other characters. When people come into contact with what Goku is, they cannot hang on to the same framing that they had. So we see that basically Roshi just staring at girls on TV is good enough for him. That's just how he's existing before Goku gets there. Goku arrives, shakes him out of it, yells at him, and it says, "Hey, I'm here. I am betterment, right? I am on the path of betterment as such.
I am the hero. Wake the hell up."
And then it contextualizes for Roshi. Okay, well, this isn't enough, right? I need to physically have a girl in my life because that is part of the archetypal masculine story, right? So, yeah.
Anything else?
So that's my takeaway from
Okay,
it. What else have you got for it?
Because there is I think a deeper message here. It's required. This isn't actually something from Roshi's lecherousness. This isn't, I don't think, Roshi trying to improve his lecherousness, because you're saying like Goku's the embodiment of bettering, basically. I don't think it's that. I think the reason this has to happen is because the boys are still too young, that they need a mother and a father. And so that has to happen before the training can even start.
So Roshi is like, oh, okay, I see that you're on that path to betterment, and I am but a masculine spirit. I am not enough. So,
yeah, exactly.
So I need to complete the circle, so to speak.
I'm not, and that's particularly at the beginning, because this is when the boys are the youngest, right? And they're actually not that young. They seem young though, especially like Krillin looks like a baby.
Yeah, but he stays looking like a baby forever.
But right, so do you see where I'm going with that?
I see what you're saying.
It has to happen that way, and it has to be Launch. Because she is the embodiment of like the counter of the, I guess she's the.
Oh, we'll get to Launch.
Yeah, we'll get to Launch. I'll wait for that.
Yeah, we should.
But right, also the way that Goku takes it, he's very nonchalant, and he doesn't exactly show the reverence that Roshi is used to, and that is not to say that he doesn't revere Roshi, but it it's just stripping away of the ego of the wise master, right? It's not how Krillin treats him later, we'll say.
Sure, there's no pomp and circumstance to Goku. It's just like, okay, like he's being forthright.
But that's it. Angels fly because they take themselves lightly.
Mm-hmm.
Goku does.
He takes himself more lightly than any character in the show, really, right?
Oh, especially the villains.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, exactly. And so let's continue. And so he sends Goku on his quest to go find a gal, and that's kind of what we already touched on. I think we basically covered this. So you got anything to say?
Well, Roshi sends Goku off with just sort of a verbal description
yes.
of a girl that he wants, and Goku's like, well, that all sounds weird to me. I have no context for that. And he's like, not too young, not too old. I think he says something along the lines.
You want
like,
someone to be your friend, is what Goku says.
Goku's like, need to find someone to be your friend, and Roshi's like, yeah, okay.
But the thing is, and that goes along with my analysis, it actually further reinforces my analysis because Roshi has not familiarized himself with that female hierarchy. So he can't articulate what it is he's looking for.
Right, and so the spirit of the hero would bring him, well, a low resolution solution to a problem that he has, right? And I also like how this kind of reflects on Goku's mentality, right, with the first and then the second options that are brought to him. And that being a big reflection of the way that
we'll
Roshi sees things, right?
We'll get to those. But yeah, exactly. But it's not just how Roshi sees things, but it's how Roshi sees things.
Yeah.
We're going to get to that. And so Roshi is having a blast, getting ready for this, to meet this gal.
I love this scene of Roshi. It's just like, if you want Roshi sound bits, this episode is the episode for that. Because all he's doing is like,
he's just like, he's just like scatting and like just humming.
He's got to choose which turtle shell to wear for the date, which is hilarious to me. Like his problem is that he has identified himself as the hermit and that he's not in society. And he's like, I need to adorn myself with a fashionable shell to interact with this date. and the whole idea of that is just great. Like, that's exactly what's wrong.
Right. Part of that is what's wrong, but part of it too is, I think, a product of the more tyrannical order that he grew up around. But we're gonna see. We're gonna see that way later. But yeah, so he chooses the pink shell, and Goku, our hero, brings back his first gal.
He brought someone for Roshi to play with.
Yes, because Goku, like I said, is still a child. That's exactly why this has to happen, for him to be able to train Goku. Because he doesn't have to have Yamcha get him a gal.
Now, the context of it's great, because I also like to think of this as like, okay, if Goku sees Roshi as this extremely powerful master, this really strong guy, and Roshi's like, go find me a gal pal. Go find me a girl that, as far as Goku understands, is someone you can play with, someone who's a friend. It's like, okay, I'll find the strongest girl I can.
That's my friend. Right.
And so he brings her. And she's like, I'm ready to play now.
I'm ready to play. Yeah, I loved it. It's so symbolically rich. And right, it's just funny too, the logistics of how did Goku actually even get this woman here.
Yeah.
But obviously this is not what Roshi was considering, and it's not because Roshi needs someone who he can be lecherous towards. It's because this particular woman is not motherly enough.
Right. She's not an embodiment of the thing that Goku needs on this type of training, the training that he's going to receive from Roshi.
Training of life.
Right.
Yeah. And so then we get this lesson.
I like it. Roshi's like, spot the difference between these pictures. And Goku's like, there is no difference.
It is. It's the Office meme right here. But look at Roshi's face too. He's excited. I'm curious. What do you think about Goku's inability to tell the difference?
Well, Roshi says, "What are you, a saint?" And there's that's part of it, I think. I think another part of it is that one, Goku has never had a maternal figure in his life. And so this is an alien concept to Goku in the first place.
Right. He has no conceptualization.
Right. So he doesn't, how would I say this?
I mean, the closest thing is Bulma.
He's not familiar with the father's gaze in seeking a preferable mate. Right. So there's something innate in that. It's like the way that you see women is going to be based on the way that your father and his father and his father and his father saw women. Right? It's coded into you the way that you see women. But Goku is not necessarily that, and he doesn't have a mother either. So he's ambivalent to the biological signaling that a woman is of like high reproductive value, right? So
And that's exactly what it is, right? That's what I was going to get to, is that Roshi is trying to establish the discrimination that a man can make based on biological signifiers enhanced by makeup, just saying, that signal to a man a woman's reproductive capabilities. Goku's not ready for that yet. And proves my point even more, because this whole lesson, this whole thing that Roshi's doing, proves that Goku needs a feminine spirit in his life to help him distinguish these things, and he does with. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean the lessons that Roshi can teach to Goku starting out are earthly lessons, right? It's like, how can I impart the hero of Earth's lessons to you, right?
I just love that this sexist part of the show, whatever, right, is so it's actually one of the biggest lessons that Roshi is teaching Goku. But let's go on. So we have Chameleon Goku, his eyes at a slant.
So this is Goku's comprehension of what he's being told right now.
But that's what the comprehension of sexual awakening is to someone who's prepubescent.
Right.
It's just whoosh, just goes right over their head, right?
And Goku's like, okay, I guess I can try to figure out the difference. I'll try to find one that looks like that for you.
Yep. And so
he's off again.
And we do see Krillin. He's gathering some sustenance that he's packed along the way. Right? His preparation has fueled his spirit.
Yeah, you could say that his going on this journey is his nourishment.
Yeah.
He's not going to Roshi yet to get that kind of nourishment, right? He's a little bit more literal in what he wants from Roshi, which is he wants to become stronger. And we'll see why. But so I think that's kind of pointing out that it wasn't Goku didn't eat on the way, right? That wasn't the nourishment that he was seeking. But Krillin's nourishment he gets on the way. That's all I want to say.
No, that point is valid, because Krillin's motivation for it is different.
Mm-hmm.
And I also wanted to point out the duality here. So we see Goku traveling on the path on the Nimbus, but we also see Krillin on a boat, and boats are particularly symbolic because they sit atop the unknown versus the sky above, right? The I guess the yin below and the yang above.
Right, the heavens
kind of on the path
separation.
And so here he's being able to reward himself by being on his his path. And I think another character, whenever he's, because the character I'm mentioning isn't always an anti-hero, but what I'm talking about is Gatsu nourishes himself along his anti-hero path in a similar way. But we'll see whenever we do our Berserk show. Plug in the Berserk show someday. Anything else you want to say about this?
No, I just love the framing in some of these, you know. It's
great.
This episode has a lot of really good framing and a lot of comedic. It's very efficient in the way that it frames things because it's telling you multiple things at the same time, a lot of different times.
Yeah, and how Goku's path is superior to Clear. That's what is happening in this. This is telling you that the way that Goku is being is superior to the way that Krillin will be. We haven't even heard him speak yet, and we know all this information about him
just by his actions.
It's amazing. His actions and the framing. And then we see the Nimbus up there. And we see his framing. We do see, though, his framing against the Dragon team. Twice.
Right. Man.
So Goku brings back his second. And what's wrong with her?
Well, this is just, it's so great that it's a mermaid.
It's amazing.
Like, this was way over my head the first time I watched it, but...
I mean, the first time you watched it when you were a kid?
I missed...
Oh, no, wait.
No.
You didn't watch it as a kid.
Right, I didn't see it as a kid. But, there's... Okay, the first thing I want to point out, and I don't have a frame of it here. I guess I forgot to put it in. When Roshi sees her, his eyes light up. He gets the two flashes in his eyes. But I have another one. So he gets the two stars in his eyes. They light up, and he runs over to her and goes to talk to her and realizes that she is a mermaid. Now, the mermaid, archetypally, kind of inhabits the same space as, like, the succubus, right? She is the siren song that calls the man into the deep that's dangerous. And when Roshi sees that she is a mermaid, his first response is this, right? He falls over, he's like, "Ah, Goku." But then, in the next frame, you'll see that he stands up and then he has one flash in his eye now. Because...
Yeah, I thought you got the flashes. What happened?
Because he's like, okay, there's a physical woman here in front of me, and she cannot fulfill the biological reason that I'm bringing a woman here in the first place. So the other half of the reason that he wants to have a woman there is to fill his selfish desire, his sort of, I don't want to call it hedonistic, because it's not hedonistic to have a sexual attraction to an attractive woman, right? But this is for himself. He's like, so it only fulfills half of it. And he's got that gleam in his eye. And one eye.
See, I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. Oh. I don't know if that's the right analysis. Let me go ahead and say.
Go ahead.
I think going with what I was saying about needing a maternal and a paternal spirit to raise the boys, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can't be someone unmotherly who can't have children like a mermaid, right? And so, yeah, the biological thing is off. But you're right. That other part, the lecherous part, is what's firing
the
off.
The gleam in the eye framed this way comes up again in this episode in a few panels, too. Well, not in a few. More like 5, but...
Yeah.
But
I just wanted to kind of rephrase that.
Yeah. Well, it's, it's like there's the gleam in the one eye because it's like, okay, this is half of the equation, right? It's like, okay, well, this is just about me now. It's not about, like, a union. And so he decides that he wants to come on to her anyway. He's like, "You're a fish, I'm a turtle. Why don't we go inside and check out our biology or whatever?"
Yeah, you can think about it as if just the black part of the yin yang is lighting up.
Right.
Instead of both parts where you're traveling down the path.
And so we see her response to that. Well, she breaks his sunglasses.
Particularly the lens with the flash.
Yes. So she reacts by hitting him exactly in the place where the Flash appeared whenever he was being lecherous. And it's like, it seems, just like a gag, but it's not a gag at all. Because after this, Roshi physically puts on another pair of sunglasses. It shows him do it.
Yeah, he just switches them out, just one after the next. That's his propensity to stay blind.
Right. This interaction could open his eyes. At least a little bit. At least open that eye. The half of his sight that saw that way was
like he
enlightened
could
by this
have just
interaction.
dismissed it. He didn't have to do that.
Right.
That's the thing. Yeah. All right, let's continue.
Do you have anything you want to say about mermaids?
As it pertains to this, no, I think the mythological significance of mermaids is not as much succubus like, let's say, in this.
Yeah. It's the feminine spirit that lures men into the unconscious rather than making them more conscious, right?
Well, it's also another thing about mastery and how even given a task as vague as what the hero has been given, he's able to first approximate something that is a female, and then he's able to narrow it down to something that's desirable, but then not something that is the embodiment of the female spirit.
Right. I want to point this out also, the relationship to porn with the succubus and the feminine spirit, right? Because this is what Roshi's doing. He's being focused on essentially porn. And he has this manifestation, like a physical manifestation of porn comes to him then, right? And it rejects him, and he chooses not to be enlightened by that, right?
Yeah.
And that's important for, what's about to happen in the next few frames.
But before we get to that, it's also important to mention that Turtle is on vacation. Why might Turtle be on vacation, eh?
Why do you think it is that Turtle is on vacation? I know what it means that Turtle is on vacation, but why is it that Turtle wasn't here when Goku arrived?
Well, Turtle can't be here for the training.
Why is that?
Because the consciousness can't be there to be proving the masculine spirit wrong or right, vindicating or opposing consistently. The boys need to see the interaction between a free-spirited, because the only reason Turtle is with Master Roshi is because he's the spiritual father. To make him more of a normal father, he can't have that tie to God. That direct tie to God.
Mm-hmm.
And so the boys need to be raised by an earthly mother and father.
Well, it's interesting too here because Roshi he's I can't remember exactly what he says, as he's like, he makes a comment to himself that he needs to find a woman before Turtle gets back, because he's essentially a buzzkill, right? So he's like, I need to capitalize
But
on
he's
the
a
time while he's on
buzzkill.
vacation.
He's a buzzkill because Roshi has made that sacrifice to be the embodiment of the spiritual paternal.
Right, you could say that his conscience tells him that he needs to embody that in that way, right? And so that has to be put on the back burner for him to embody this for someone other than himself, right?
Right. And so exactly, and that's why Turtle cannot be here while the boys are being trained and while Roshi's trying to fulfill that dual modus operandi with launch. We'll just say launch. Everyone knows launch is coming anyways.
And as soon as Roshi has this thought about Turtle, they see something on the horizon coming on the water.
And what could it be?
Roshi's like, no, it's Turtle. But it's not.
It isn't Turtle. It is Krillin.
So Krillin has arrived in the place of Turtle whenever Roshi was, for a second, afraid that it was Turtle coming to him. And I think that the significance of that is what Krillin is bringing to try to convince Roshi to train him.
I actually think it's because Roshi is on a path, his path. He's developing over these episodes really quickly, as well as the
Right.
boys. So what we're seeing right now is Roshi's path has delivered him to this, to where he needs a new pupil in order to be able to train Goku, and that's his ultimate purpose, is to train Goku. He needs someone who's had a mother. Krillin had a mother.
Mm-hmm.
To go be able to find, or not even had a mother, but has had the interaction with the feminine. That's why he has the porn.
Well, has an earthly representation of the feminine.
He doesn't like look at the magazines or anything, though. Krillin is still kind of oblivious to that. He still needs launch as well later on.
Mm-hmm.
But he is aware enough, more than Goku, of societal norms and things that he knows what the approximation of a mother should be. And so that's what Roshi's telling. Well, we'll get to that part, but that's why he's coming, is because that's what Roshi needs to train Goku.
Right. So that's what I was wanting to get to, because he comes bearing dirty magazines for Roshi. It's immediately following him putting the sunglasses back on from being attacked by a physical manifestation of a succubus spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that points me immediately to say, okay, like, this is more about what Krillin represents for Roshi that he's arriving at this time, right? It's like he's just been in a process of getting here, right? And so we check in every now and then as he's getting closer and closer and closer. Then it's like the light bulb. I don't even want to say the light bulb goes off, but it's sort of like everything aligns with that one fact that Roshi wants to be willfully blind to what he could learn from that, right? It's like, okay, it's like,
how can he remain willfully blind
and have this pupil, right? And
yes,
it's like, that is how
you're gonna have to take on more responsibility, but you're gonna get that part, that hedonistic part. I don't know if we should call it that.
Yeah,
it's kind of what I keep going to as well, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, because it's a biologically rooted thing, because we're kind of boiling this down all the way to the biological necessity of the way that the masculine spirit is, because also the concept of the mother is tied up into the lecherous way that Master Roshi is, right? Like the concept of a mother has multiple facets to it, right? It's like fertility, but also the maternal protective spirit too. Like,
yeah,
there's a duality to it that needs to be understood and respected and put into its right place for this hero's journey to make sense, right? And so we're seeing both elements of that need to come together, really.
Exactly. And the hero and the anti-hero need to be on the same path.
Yes. And so
Krillin
wants to show off.
Oh, yeah. He immediately does start by doing that. And that's, he's being judged. See, unlike, let's say, Tom Sawyer, who's not being judged by a woman, but this is, I think, more clear and understandable for young men being judged by other men, particularly elders that you look up to, right? It's an important thing. So this is Krillin's one chance.
Right. He stops the boat and intentionally leaps out of the boat and does front flips to try to show off his physical prowess to Master Roshi in hopes of having a better chance of becoming a pupil, and winds up with his head in the sand. Literally.
Yeah, but I think that's indicative, right? It's like he has his head in the sand thinking that he can come this way with the sole purpose of beating up those bullies that bullied him.
Right.
Right?
Wielding something that's more mature than him, right? Like, as an offering, he's like, I have this thing. This is more mature than I am, but I'm going to try to pretend like I'm more mature than I am so that you'll, I'm going to posture my way into that betterment.
Posturing, right?
Yeah.
Even that posturing is something. It's still better than nothing. And so it has led Krillin to a place where he can find genuine betterment.
Right.
And so even if you're on the path of an anti-hero, that doesn't mean your path won't intersect with the hero and then coincide. It doesn't mean your path is set. Guts, I think, is a good example of that.
Yeah, I think so.
And so, yeah, we've already talked about basically this Krillin's scheme to get in.
Right. When Roshi tells him no, he says, I don't just take on any pupil.
Notice, though, it's that same left eye. The same one that Roshi gleaned whenever he was doing something sordid.
Right. Something a bit more base. More focused on the...
It's manipulation as well.
Yeah. I know there's a better way to put it.
But it's also a thing that he knows. Well, how do you think Krillin knows that Master Roshi will be susceptible to this? He's never met Master Roshi before.
I think it has something to do with having a better understanding of the masculine spirit because of him coming from an earthly mother and father, whereas Goku did not. Right? So it's like, if you have a mother, that means you had a father. If you had a father, that means that your father had, you had someone that you looked up to that embodied that masculine spirit to some degree. So he has a context for that in the fact that he was conceived in the first place, in like the biological conjunction. And so the difference between Goku and Krillin, and why Goku has no conception of it whatsoever and why Krillin would, is that the earthly nature versus the non-earthly nature.
I think more of what I would say is that Krillin knows this because he's understanding of the society enough to know the spiritual father has to detach themselves from the feminine. He's gained that wisdom by being in hierarchical structure, unlike Goku, who's barely been in hierarchical structures outside of nature.
Right. So his understanding of what that means for a hermit, that is a masculine spirit, is different from what Goku would understand it to mean.
Right, and it's part of some of the redeeming aspects of Krillin's character are understanding that. And using that to his advantage. He's a little sharper than Goku as far as his intelligence goes, right? And so he's able to use this here to manipulate his way into becoming Roshi's pupil. And he does earn it. He does earn it. It's not just given to him because Roshi needs someone who knows what an attractive woman looks like. It's because of multi-layered, like what Brok was saying about having a mother and a father, and being able to identify motherly attributes, as well as his cunning nature, and ability to understand the needs of the spiritual paternal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it.
There they are. Look at them. H.
He's like, I brought you some nourishment.
Take some nourishment. And it's not good nourishment.
H is for hentai. Not literally here. But
maybe.
It makes me think of that, just like, it's almost like a picture book, right? It's like, H is for hentai.
That's hilarious. Yeah, just like a kid's book. But right, so Krillin offers him up one 1.
Gives him a magazine. So Roshi speed reads it. He speed reads it and he goes, "Okay, tell you what, I will make you my pupil, but you gotta go find me a girl."
Well, we do see some interaction though between Krillin and Goku while he's reading that.
That's right.
And Krillin says, "You don't look like you like to fight," and Goku says, "I like marshmallows." What does that have to do with anything? Says Krillin. Goku says, "Your head looks like a marshmallow." It's just the level of maturity. Goku is much he more than Krillin needs launch.
Yes. There's something hilarious about it too, where it's like Krillin is taking this very seriously. You know, he has hauled this sack of hentai across the world
It's heavy.
to try to get.
Think
better.
about how heavy that sack of hentai is.
And he's here, and he's like, "Oh, so you're Master Roshi's pupil?" And he's like, "I like marshmallow." He's like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Exactly. And so here, he's telling Roshi what kind of girl he's going to get.
Right. So Master Roshi is like, same thing. You got to help Goku. Like, Goku obviously can't find me a woman. He doesn't even. I showed him a picture of just a woman from the chest up, and he brought me literally a woman from the chest up. So you're gonna have to help this guy. Like, he doesn't know what a woman is. And Krillin's like, "Oh,
That's
I know
the
what
other
a woman
part of
is."
it. Toriyama's so brilliant.
Oh yeah.
It's a joke within a joke within a joke.
There are so many layered jokes in the show. But so Roshi is obviously impressed with whatever Krillin tells him. He's like, "Write that one down." And he tells Krillin essentially that just join Goku on his path. Go hop up on that Nimbus and go bring me a girl.
And so he will try.
And fail.
Boom. Shagoom.
For obvious reasons. But it's funny how Roshi interprets it, right? Because Roshi gets a dirty magazine from him as an exchange for his training, and then thinks he can jump up on the Nimbus, right?
But Roshi also was blind enough to, well, you know.
Exactly. So Roshi confronts Krillin when he falls off the Nimbus and says, "Well, that means you're not pure-hearted, which means you're hiding something from us."
Well, he also, Krillin also denigrates the Nimbus as soon as he sees it.
He's
a
like,
cloud.
"You named a cloud?" Ugh.
Yeah, it's just a part of that anti-being sentiment, right?
Mm-hmm.
That he does have a spark of. And so then he admits it.
He
Krillin
admits
was
that
holding out.
He has been hiding something.
There's a whole sack of hentai here.
He didn't bring anything but hentai.
There's no food. He ate all his food. No water. Drank it all. It was here, and that was it. He'd have to be his pupil.
He just brought a reserve of it.
But I also think it's kind of dragging sin with you, right? And offering up that flaw to the spiritual father to improve. That's kind of the first step.
Yeah, I like the symbology of it, where it's like, I have a task for you. Go get on the path and do this task. And then Krillin can't, and he's like, what are you not telling me? And Krillin's like, "I have all of this sin here. Just have all of it."
Yeah, exactly.
And then he can go, right?
Yes.
And the episode basically just ends on this joke of him feeding him magazine.
We have one more
after magazine as he speed reads.
No, we have more than one. We got one more after this.
And
last house.
This one's L. Last house, and then it says ho. It looks like it says ho ho or something like that.
Maybe homo.
Yeah, maybe homo.
But it's a male magazine.
And
Krillin doesn't know.
Krillin doesn't know, yeah. Krillin doesn't have the context for it. He just knows what they are.
He knows of it, like a kid would know of it.
Yeah.
But Goku's not a normal kid. He's how we should be kids.
Pure.
And there we have it. The greatest Roshi face.
This is one of my favorite Roshi faces.
Oh, it's so good. Krillin's just he's astounded. His eyes are as open as they've been so far. He's only
That's true.
And he's only interacted with the spiritual father for a bit. But I think we've arrived here at the end of the episode. Are there any things you want to recap real quick?
I think this episode was pretty straightforward, you know. Like
Yeah.
just talking through it chronologically, it makes a certain type of logical sense, you know. I like that we have the motif of the forest and then the desert and the water all leading over here, and it's like, okay, we have the dragon gang get dropped into the forest and they have to go in the desert, and then, you know, that's representative of the path that they had, or at least the beginning of the path that was there in the first season, right?
Right, exactly. They still have to go back through that to go home.
And then we have to contextualize Krillin. It's like, okay, Krillin has mastered this domain. He's mastered this domain. Okay, he's able to master this domain. And we walk him through all of that stuff to catch him up with what we learned spiritually in season 1, right?
And how he is going to progress the story.
Mm-hmm.
What purpose he will serve in the story.
Right. What we're told throughout this episode is there is another mode of being that traverses all of this.
And is still wrong.
Not entirely, like, I would say with ease, but I mean, it's basically with ease compared to the Dragon Crew, right? And still can't ride the Nimbus.
Yeah. It's still not the proper way of being. And yeah, I think basically this episode is that two paths of Goku and Krillin, and it shows us all those things, and it shows us also Goku's need for the spiritual feminine in his youth. But I think we've arrived at an ending point.
Yeah, that's how the episode ends, on a gay joke.
Guess it's a little dated. I don't think so, though.
I don't think it's dated.
Because that's not the point.
Well, the real point is that Roshi, it always comes back to bite him whenever he's being lecherous as well.
That's true. It is something that recurs throughout the show. But anyways, next time we're going to see Mom launch.
That's right. Dragon Ball's best girl.
Best girl right here. She is amazing, and she's exactly what Goku and Krillin need for them to be able to grow into the resilient warriors they eventually become. And this is our first glimpse into her. We're going to start talking about her next time when she's introduced and the circumstances under which that happens. Very, very interesting, especially I would say the first half of the episode is particularly meaningful.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait to get into this one.
So we will be doing that next Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Be sure to subscribe if you like what you heard. And give us a like if you liked what you heard, I guess. Also, just do it all.
And comment if you liked what you heard.
And then ring the bell if you liked what you heard. Just do all of those things if you liked.
And if you didn't, do it anyway.
Yes. All right, so this was Get the Mic episode 14.
15.
14.
Is Get the Mic episode 14?
Yeah.
Okay.
14. I'm your host on the left, Owl.
I'm your host on the right, Brok.
And we will see you guys next time.